are constantly arrested and harassed by Uganda's security agents. We should also remember that what is good for the goose should also be good for the gander. And I want to remind him also that he should not overstep. He should not overstep diplomatic boundaries. He cannot, I emphasize, win a military war against the combined military forces of Kenya and Tanzania. Because when he talks about the Indian Ocean, I believe, yes, it means Kenya and Tanzania, because some of its goods pass through Tanzania and Kenya. Idi Amin Dada, in 1979, tried to annex the Kagera region of Tanzania. The Tanzanian military, led by General David Bugozi Museveni, and the battle-hardened tactician, Brigadier Mike Mwita, led the Tanzanian forces. They humiliated the Uganda army and chased Amin out of Uganda. Some of the people who were in the Kagera campaign, the Kagera operation, are still alive. And I have in mind Lieutenant Colonel Jakaya Kikwete, who is now retired as a former president of Tanzania. He should be laughing at Museveni, wherever he is. I was personally present at Kololo when Museveni awarded General Museveni and Brigadier Mike Mwita, the highest medal in Uganda, is called the Nanubale Award, because of chasing out Amin. Because Museveni benefited from Amin's defeat. That is why he later became the president. Nanubale Award. It was Mr. Daniel Arap Moi, our late president, who helped Museveni to diplomatically and politically snooker Ugandan leader, General Tito Okello Lutwa, during the 1985 Uganda peace talks. He should not play with fire. He should choose the peaceful way. In fact, I was one of the people who were looking after Museveni when he was weak in Nairobi. He used to use my office to contact his brother Salim Saleh in the Luero Triangle. My office was his command post. Museveni should remember people like Akina Sergeant Sugut. We used to give him even our own security people so that we could escort him by Kenya Air Force, Buffalo planes, so that he could access the Luero Triangle through Rwanda. We helped him. So how can he threaten people who put him in power? There are some people who are more eloquent than him during the Uganda peace talks. People like Brigadier Gad Wilson Toko, who was at one time the commander of the Uganda Air Force. And you should also remember the eloquence of a former foreign minister in Uganda, Olara Otunu. We helped him. Even Nyerere loved Museveni so much that even he wrote the foreword to his book, The Must and Seed. Museveni has got so much to thank Kenya for and to thank Tanzania for. We do not deserve this kind of threat.
In your view, could such statements strain the long-standing diplomatic and trade relations between Kenya and Uganda?
Yes, they could. Because unless he tells us that he was joking, we shall take him seriously. And you know, Museveni is known for his use of force. He stormed into Kampala in 1986 through the barrel of the gun. So, based on his past, which is very well documented, we have reason to fear. Now, when we see Ugandans here, who are too many in Kenya, and here in Nakuru, there are so many Ugandans doing business here. They are hawkers. They are working in the bars, in the restaurants. When we see them, we might start to see enemies because of the utterances of their leader. Because Museveni talks for Uganda. He is the leader. So what he says should be taken seriously. You remember, even when he came to power, we almost went to war. Yeah, until we had to reconcile in Amagoro during the Moi administration.
Do you believe Uganda's grievances over oil pipeline routes and port access are legitimate economic concerns, or are they politically driven?
As I said, these things can be resolved through dialogue. They are legitimate, but you cannot resolve these things by force of arms. They should negotiate. They do not need an interpreter. Museveni speaks Swahili. Suluhu speaks Swahili. Ruto speaks Swahili. They all speak English. If they cannot understand each other in English, speak Swahili.
From your experience in government, what is the best approach Kenya should take to de-escalate this tension with Uganda?
Talk to Museveni. Tell him to apologize. Or say he was speaking in jest. Because you have got cases where they have been harassing our fishermen in Migingo.
Bwana Njiru, should the East African Community, EAC, intervene to mediate the growing differences between the two countries before the situation worsens?
Now, who is the East African Community? The East African Community are the leaders. They should. That's what I mean.
Do you think structured bilateral or regional talks could help avert potentially boiling diplomatic conflict?
Yes, they can.
Given Museveni's decades in power and regional influence, do you find his suggestion of possible fighting over port access petty or alarming?
It is petty, it is alarmist, and called for.
So historically, East African Community had shared services such as railways, airlines, and harbors. Do you think reviving such shared infrastructure could help prevent these kinds of disputes in future?
Yes, yes. That's what I was talking about initially. But because of selfishness and big man syndrome, everybody wants to eat his own cake because they don't want a loss of power. You see, I want to escalate this a bit. I want to repeat this. I get annoyed that African countries, instead of uniting and form one country with one army, like the United States of America, like China, like India, they want to be fragmented. Now, Kenya army, what is it for? To fight Uganda? To fight Tanzania? Tanzanian army, what is it for? It's not for fighting Germany. It's not for fighting Japan. It's not for fighting Britain. What are they for? If they want to defend, they should defend Africa. Not every country defending itself. Some of them have got aircraft, fighter jets, which are leaking. Others are not serviceable, just to feel big. You see, I heard one leader speaking during UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly, saying that Africa is not on the agenda. Why should you be on the agenda? Create your own agenda. Why should Africa have 54 ambassadors in Washington when China has got one? And China has 1.4 billion people. Africa has got 1.5 billion people. Why should India have one ambassador in London when African countries have got 54 in London? Different voices, different religions, different currencies. Like last time I was attending a conference in Arusha, I think last month. A delegate from Malawi and to fly to Addis Ababa in order to take a plane to fly to Mount Kilimanjaro International Airport. And now Museveni wants to fragment us even further. When he says he wants to go to war, the manufacturers of ammunition and the guns in Belgium and the Beretta Cabade in Italy, they are salivating. They want us to go to war so that they can sell guns to Kenya and to Uganda.
Could a more integrated East Africa with a common market and shared transport corridors eliminate such competition for access to ports?
Yes, they should even remove these borders. They mean nothing. I remember up to 1970s, I used to go to Uganda with the same currency. To Tanzania, East African currency. Now you see in Africa, when you're in Kenya, Kenya shilling, Tanzania shilling, Uganda shilling, Ethiopian birr, Pula in Botswana, Rand in South Africa, Kwacha in Malawi, Sendi in Ghana, Naira in Nigeria.
Some leaders have proposed a federated East Africa with a rotational presidency. From your perspective, is that a realistic or utopian idea?
Well, I was in Yugoslavia in 1985 after the death of their leader, their great leader, Josip Broz Tito. They had a rotational presidency. It did not work. That's why they had to split into Croatia, Serbia, Macedonia, and such like. It is a good idea, but then, is it sustainable? That is the question. Is it sustainable? With the kind of big man syndrome, everybody wants to feel big. You see, going back a little bit, when President Moi, Ali Hassan Mwinyi, and Museveni floated the idea for a federation, many people thought that the geopolitics was not right for such a federation. Because, to be specific, people thought that in that federation, if it was going to be democratic and to have elections in the federation, the Luo people would dominate the politics. Because you remember, the Luo people are the true East Africans. You remember here in Kenya, we have had the Vice President, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, a Luo, his son, Prime Minister Raila Odinga. We had foreign ministers, Robert John Ouko, Dolo Aya, we ministers like Dalumaso Otieno. In Uganda, we had President Milton Obote Aluo. We had foreign ministers, Olara Otunu. We had generals, military generals, General Tito Okello Lutwa. We had Basilio Okello. We had Brigadier Oyite Ojoko. Many big people. In Tanzania, we had Luos who were holding high positions. People like Joshua Opanga, who was Tanzania's ambassador in Uganda. He was a Luo. So, as you see, people say Luos are the largest single ethnic group in East Africa, and they strand the entire region. So people thought that if we went democratically, one man, one vote, Luos would always win because they are the majority. They are in Tanzania, and in Uganda. Not talking about beyond the borders in Congo and southern Sudan. Now, that was the bone of contention. How do you contain the Luo people in politics? Because even if you do not like the original idea, and then you want to change, and you go for a referendum, the Luo would always win. Now, that's why I'm saying, if they want to fend it, they must come up with a workable, agreeable constitution detailing how power should be shared. Now, that is now for technocrats to work out.
Going back to Museveni, he has suggested that the Indian Ocean should belong to Africa, not just Kenya. How practical or even lawful is such a proposition under international law?
I said, in 1964, at independence, the leaders of Africa, they met in Addis Ababa and agreed that boundaries should remain the way they were during the colonial times at independence. But you see, that is an idea, that is a plan, that's a system which is not cast in stone. They can, if they want to fend it, they can draw their boundaries. These boundaries were done in Berlin. They were done in Berlin by the super. These are not our borders. Because Africa was divided by the white people, by colonialists. It's as if they were dividing their father's land. This is our land. But you see now, if we remain, disorganized, speaking at cross purposes, we shall remain under the control of colonial powers. They left, gave us independence, but are we yet free?
Do you think resource sharing, as you have put it, among East African's nations, for instance, Uganda's oil, Tanzania's diamond, and Kenya's port and gold in Kolomani, as you put it, could create a new model of African economic cooperation?
Of course. If we find it, that's what it means.
Could shared natural resources like Lake Victoria serve as unifying symbol for regional integration instead of a source of rivalry?
Yes, I do believe that.
What lesson should East African leaders draw from this diplomatic spat about leadership, communication, and the spirit of Pan-Africanism?
Now, we have no foreign enemy. Why should you want us to implode? We must be very stupid if we allow ourselves to implode. We shall not be using our spears. We shall not be using our pangas. We shall be using foreign military equipment. And you'll be allowing stock.
If today you are to get a direct telephone line and call Museveni, what will be your message?
First of all, I would call him a liar and a belligerent person. In his book, in his seminal book, The Mustard Seed, his first message, his most emphatic message, is that the problem with Africa is leaders who overstay in power. How long has he stayed in power? Secondly, I will tell him, war is costly. War is very costly. Do not take that direction.
Do you think African people and their leader value themselves and their compatriots?
I do not think so. I'm saying so because I've been watching many scenarios.